let you know that today the glam is inspired by 90s future, and I'll explain. Basically, some of my favorite pop stars and R&B stars of the 90s, whenever they thought about the future, it was always like silver and white and interesting shapes and deviations from classic approach to makeup. And we know they love contour, and we know they love the matte face. So we're going to be doing a little bit of all of that today. I feel like when we think future, we think dystopian, we think minimalist, and I'm going to try to conjure those elements today in today's plan. So let's get settled, and I'm going to let you know, oh, to start, I prepped my skin with Strobe Cream in Gold Light. You can tell that she's well loved, but a good trick for appearing on camera is focusing on having the light reflect. Anytime you have light reflecting in the right spots, the high points, especially, you're in a good place. Things are working in your favor. So I'll just put that out there as a little tip in case. I'm surprised if anyone hasn't used this product, but just in case you haven't, she's a classic. All right, I'm going to get started, and we're going to be doing quite an intense eye. I'm using the Studio Fix Soft Matte Foundation Stick in NC42. I'm going to take my palette knife with my stainless steel palette. I'm going to scrape some onto there. I'm sure you can see that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the skin and the dimension in kind of all at once. I think having a theater background, I like to take the fewest steps possible. Of course, it's a luxury when you get to sit down and you have a client or you're on set and you are allotted the amount of time that you need to do your magic, but sometimes that's just not the case. So I just kind of prefer most of the time to just go in highlighting and contouring, just guns blazing. So I'm gonna take the MAC 191, and I have my two shades here. I'm gonna tuck my chin a little bit. And I'm going to start with the lighter tone, the MC42. And I'm going, oh, actually, before that, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I want to tell you about my fave Prep and Prime in Peach Luster. So I'm going to put this on. And being a woman of color, I think many women, we tend to have these little spots that want to cast shadow and dim our shine. So a product like this with a salmon-y type of tone is really great for doing away with those little gray casts. I am especially prone to that around the mouth, obviously under the eyes. So before I do anything, I'm just going to pop this on. And obviously, if this was a client situation, you would have everything put onto your stainless steel palette. And I'm just gonna pop on to the middle. I have some hyperpigmentation there, so might as well just get it all in. And then I'm going to take my brush, which actually has a little bit of product already, and I'm going to just kind of mesh them together. Now, keep in mind that Halloween is around the corner. So between the 90s future glam concept and the time of the year, we're really gonna go for it today, okay? This is not your dewy glam with like a multi-use product. This is not your, slick it back and go situation. We're gonna go full tilt. So I'm focusing on the areas that we generally focus on for highlighting. And a good way to know also where to focus on is when you look at photos, they tend to tell us things that maybe we don't see looking in the mirror. Like, for example, when I first started doing my own makeup, it really took pictures communicating some very harsh truths with me for me to go, oh, I need to color correct that before I started to really, and also editing your own pictures. I highly recommend, even if you're maybe not into it, I would definitely just watch some tutorials and get a sense of what it entails, because it will inform you as a makeup artist. And I think that's also partly why a lot of makeup artists tend to do a bit of photography, because the two are very much related, especially when you get into editing. So anyway, I have my 191 brush well primed with this product, and I'm kind of feathering using mostly the tip. My touch is very light and I'm working very quickly. And I'm using my monitor and my mirror here in case you're wondering. And then I'm going to do the same in the center of my forehead. Now this is a beautiful finish because it gives you a very natural matte. It's not like a bone dry, like severe situation. And generally I don't like matte foundations for that reason. Like, they tend to be very intense. I have combination skin, but I don't like overly matte foundation. So this formula is really lovely. So you can see things slowly starting to come together here. And I'm really taking a risk because we are working with black today. So we're gonna have to be very good about tapping off that brush, getting the product off, and not having a ton of fallout. Also, we'll have to be really good about setting the skin. Okay, so just getting to a place that I feel like I can live with. I could go outside. I'm getting right up to the edge. And I'm kind of avoiding this area here because I know I'm gonna go in with my deeper tone. And I like to avoid layering products when it's not necessary, just to avoid having too much makeup on the skin. So I'm gonna take that right there. It's gonna look crazy, but the next step is gonna make everything make sense. Kind of like we're starting to shape with light rather than starting to shape with shadow. And you can see what it's implying, right? All right, now I'm gonna take the NW47, and I like mixing the NC and NW because it speaks to my undertones. I have some warm, some yellow, so I like to mix it up and kind of pick up the tones that are in my skin, so that I can honor them and have them show up in my makeup. Okay, so now I'm taking that NW47 and I'm going to work that in here. Not only am I going to work it into the contour points, I'm also going to feather it in and up so that we can make sure that there are no harsh lines. But first I'm going to get my product where I want it. You know, the 90s loved a nose contour. I mean, we still love a nose contour today, but I mean, they were the OGs. And I'm just going, I like going maybe like a shade and a half or so darker than my skin for the most part, because anything beyond that can get a bit severe. If I'm doing drag for someone, then you can get more into that territory, or even performance makeup, because it's really all just drag. When you get into a stage situation, you want to actually go a little heavier, a little more intense. You can have more contrast, but for photos and real life, you want to just be careful. Okay, so now you can see we have some warmth here, we have a lot of coolness here, and we have this intensity, this line. We don't want that, right? So I'm taking my brush, I'm kind of just passing it over an empty spot, and I'm just gonna start feathering that down into the rest of the face. And you can see that start to soften and kind of look more meshed together. The same thing around here. I'm gonna actually go back in here with a lighter tone. And a lot of people tend to say they don't like the flat brushes for foundation because they can be streaky. And, you know, so people will use like a combination of you know, beauty blender or something like that with a foundation brush like this. And that's fine. I'm all for doing what works. I'm not very much like, I only do it this way, I only do it this way. I do what I need to do in the moment, depending on what's most available to me and how much time I have. But I will say, this brush works really well with a cream like this. or stick foundation like this because it's not liquid. When you have liquid, you have more of the opportunity to get streaks and you're just moving foundation around, right? But with this one, you can really work it in. And especially like you don't see me going like this. I'm not dragging it. I'm just kind of working quickly and doing these little sweeps and little presses. And that really works the product into the skin. And I don't get too crazy about coverage because I know I'm going to use Studio Fix and Mineralized Skin Finish. And that's going to get us a lot of the way. I have to go a little bit more here with the lighter tone because I have spent my entire life smiling a lot. I feel like I should be rewarded, but here we are. We need a little more product there. Okay, so I'm gonna blend these lines, make sure nothing's too hard. And then I'm taking the two tones and I'm just gonna mix them and then go over my filter. I'm gonna put this down. Has anyone tried the Studio Fix Stick Foundation? I'd love to know what you think and what your favorite MAC foundation is. I also love the conceal palettes. When I first started freelancing, I would always have a bunch of those because it just made the whole thing less intimidating for me because depotting and all that, it's very intimidating. But with something like the conceal palette, for example, it just kind of lays it out for you. It has a little corrector shade in there, so you don't have to overthink it. Okay, so I feel like we're in a pretty decent place. I'm gonna just hit this area here. All right, cool. So next I'm going to take the MAC Mineralized Skin Finish in dark, and I'm going to use the 150 MAC brush. And okay, so there's a lot of debate about small brushes versus big brushes. I think use the brush that you work on. If I use small brushes, large brushes, it all depends. And one thing I'm a huge fan of though is pinching a brush. I will make a brush do what I need it to do if it's the closest brush to me most often. So I'm working my brush into the product and then I'm pressing it onto my skin. I'm using it almost like a powder puff because it's the same kind of mechanism that you would use if you're really trying to set something. You wouldn't sweep it across. I think the sweeping is very nice if you're going to have a makeup that you just need to just last a little bit. You don't need it to go too long and you'll be doing touch-ups. But if you're going, well, we're not going anywhere right now, but if you're going to perform or you're going to be on camera for a long time, you might, and if no one's going to be doing the touch-ups, you're going to want something that can really last. I just did a makeup a few days ago and I couldn't be on set because of COVID. And so I checked in with the artist later, like, how was the glam? I was like, how was the shoot? And she's like getting into the details of the shoot. I was like, oh, love that, but how was the glam? And she was like, oh, barely had to touch up throughout the day. So that's what you want to hear. So you can see the mineralized skin finish leaves the skin looking skin-like. I'll just kind of drag this down here. I mean, obviously, normally we would do the foundation down here, but it's just us two. I won't tell, you won't tell. So once I've done that, I think I'm just gonna go for it and do the whole face before we get to the eyes, right? I'm taking the Max Studio Fix in the NC 43.5. And this goes back to what I mentioned earlier about not going too many steps up or down the skin tone when doing highlighting and contouring, so that it's not too severe, unless severity is your look, because that's a vibe too, you know, but we're not doing that today. This is the MAC 116 brush, and I'm taking this, just kind of pressing my brush into it, and I'm going to press it under my eye, right? It's a little bit lighter, and it really speaks to this super yellow undertones in my neck. And that's another thing that I love to do is like, there's also a lot of talk about matching your neck, matching your face. I kind of feel like you can do both by just having, as long as your high points match your neck, it will look cohesive. I don't think you need to really stress about choosing one or the other and getting a foundation that is not the color of your face to match your neck or vice versa, you know? So something to keep in mind. This is just, you know, how I like to look at it, but okay, so we handled our highlighting already. I'm gonna do a little in the center of the forehead, a little like close to the ear back here, right? And you see it looks like we did a contour step, but we actually eliminated a step by doing that in the first foundation application, right? So I'm gonna take a little more skin finish in the dark, and I'm just gonna swirl just around the seams. I always call them seams, like the seams in your clothing. I'm like, wherever you see lines, I would say, these are our seams, and we want to make a piece seamless. So I'm taking that, and I'm just kind of buffing away any seams. That's just not the look. You know what I mean? All right, so now, this is kind of unconventional. I guess now I would go straight into eyes, but I kind of feel like, let's just do the face so that when we do the eyes, we'll be done, right? We don't have to go back and forth. I'm taking the matte blush in the shade Burnt Pepper. Gorgeous, gorgeous tone. And what I love about this, and just in general about blushes that are so well made like this, and really a lot of consideration about tone, is that if I get really cold or my skin gets flushed for whatever reason, whether it's something rubbing up against it or anything, this is close to the tone it would actually be. And that kind of observation is what helps inform us and educate us about what tones to go for depending on who's in our chair, right? I always, well, we're not on the train now, but one of my favorite things to do is just to observe people's skin in real life, because a lot of things we're trying to achieve. Ooh, let's get that. Ooh. Oh no. Okay, we're back. A lot of things we're trying to achieve exist in skin, maybe not in our skin, in someone. Like the way that I really came to understand highlighting, for example, like illuminating, was by looking at a freshly moisturized face, looking at mine, looking at others, and seeing, okay, what is it that we love about that we're trying to recreate? Because to me, the most beautiful makeup is just trying to recreate natural beauty, right? That's why we love the natural beauty. Anyway, I'm taking Burnt Pepper and I'm focusing it right up front on the apples. And then I'm going to take a clean brush and I'm just going to buff around that. So it's not like, hey, I put it right there. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit more. And I'm going back to the clean brush. And this is a 129, if you're wondering. But as long as it's a similar brush as 116, 129, it's something that's not a huge powder brush, but we'll get the job done. Okay, so now I'm going to take Film Noir, which is this beautiful, deep kind of, I'm gonna say like brownish brown kind of situation. I'm gonna actually use this in place of a brownish contour for a few reasons. One, it's more interesting. For something like this, we don't have to play by the rules, but we have to keep the same concept, so the same laws in makeup. It's still about light and shadow, but depending on what look you're going for, you can tweak what that shadow looks like, right? So it's October, we're doing this future glam. What is that, right? It's anything you want it to be. So I'm tapping my brush in here, and I'm going to I like to think of I don't know why I have this image in my head. I've probably seen it once or twice in a movie, but archaeologists, when they are finding something, they take a little brush and they're just like trying to reveal the thing that is underneath all that muck. And I kind of think of that when I'm doing contour. I'm like, okay, the bone is there. I'm just trying to reveal the bone. I'm just trying to reveal the structure. I'm trying to show what's there, right? So I like to work against the bone upwards, right? And I love feathering one thing into the other because I mean, no one likes to look up like, here's my blush, here's my contour. So we're not going to start that here today, right? Okay, and you can see we've got a nice structure going. I can also like put the temples a little bit, right? Okay, we'll get the other one later. All right, so I am going to, let's curl lashes first. This is the MAC Lash Curler. I'm just gonna pop in here because I tend to forget to curl my lashes. So let's just quickly do this very awkward thing on camera that no one loves. Every time I have someone in the chair and I'm coming towards them with a lash curler, it's just like, I always check in with them like, are you comfortable with this? Because I know it can be very uncomfortable if it's not something you like to have done or something that you like to normally do, right? All right, so now I'm taking my black track with my gel liner, and I'm going to take my palette knife again and scoop a little bit out onto my palette. Obviously, if it's yours, you know, you can just dip your brush right in there. I just feel like with everything going on, as much as possible, I would just like to keep reiterating good habits. You know what I mean? So, all right, I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna grab my 239 shader brush. And I'm going to start packing the house. So what I love about this is you can use it kind of the way you would use a kohl pencil, where, you know, you build a smoky eye, for example. You start with, you know, kind of getting it all over the lid, blending it out. I like that you can use this in a similar way. So I'm packing it on. And when I'm doing that, I also try to remember that it's very likely I'm going to end up with some little space, you know, at the end of your makeup, and you're like, what is that skin in my lash line? So I kind of think of that as I'm going. I know I'll have to visit it again anyway, but the more we can think about the steps as we go, the less we have to kind of go back, right? I'm going to grab my 224 brush and I'm going to start blending. And this is a good moment to just talk about how it's not about having every shade of black and gray, right? A product like this lets you kind of build, blend, and mold it and put it on in a way that gives you dimension without you having to use a bunch of different products. It's usually not necessary, right? There are definitely those looks, but this is not one of them. You can see that as we blend this up, it starts to look like maybe a dark gray is up here. I'm gonna blow this out into oblivion. Okay, and we're kind of gonna go back and forth like that. I'm gonna do one eye at a time because this does dry, which is a great quality about this product, but we don't want to play games with it. We want to definitely get in there as soon as possible. So I'm gonna take this way out. And this is what I talked about before, how I love to pinch a brush. Like, you see how this is kind of not going exactly how I want. I'm just gonna take my brush and pinch it. And then I'm gonna use my mirror. And then I start to get something a little smoother. I'm gonna add a little more product. I'm going to blend inwards so we get most of that palette going towards the eye. And then go back out. What I'm going to do is take the very edge of the brush and just skim the outer corner just to give us some sort of line here. And then go back in and blend. I want the end of it to be kind of feathered out. I don't want it to be a fine point. I just want it to just feel like an unfinished sentence. Right? Okay, so once we're there, I'm gonna grab a little piece of it and just boom, right? We don't need all that extra bits. So now I'm taking carbon and I'm gonna actually use a 217 brush. I'm gonna pat that on. Definitely wanna tap this out. We did set pretty well, so even if we do get any fallout, we should be fine. And I'm gonna focus this just on the inner corner and the outer. I'm just gonna also put that here. I'm gonna grab my 2.4 again and just slap it in there. And the thing I love about angling an eye up like that is that it kind of gives the illusion of face tape. You know how we love to see the face snatched and pulled up to the heavens? I feel like anytime you get shadow around the temple eye area, it's giving this similar illusion of a lift. So you could accomplish that also with contour shade or bronzer, just lightly, even if it, like I like to take sometimes into my crease and then go right into my temples, and it just adds such a beautiful lifting illusion. All right, so right now that that's done, I'm gonna go in with the shade Magnifique. I'm gonna wipe off my brush, put it on the towel. And is this step necessary? Yes. And let me tell you why. Sometimes what makes that little difference with a look is those little extra steps you take, you know? It's like, okay, could I just go on with my next shade and just forget about this? Absolutely. But the fact that this is a Dazzle shadow, so it has a little bit of those little light reflecting particles in it, it makes it a little more special. And maybe you don't see it from far away, but up close, it's a detail you might appreciate. And it's also sometimes when we do makeup, it's not necessarily for other people. It's like, I know that this is making a difference, so that's kind of enough for me. Here, I do have a birthmark right over here that's always giving me grief, but I'm gonna silence it today. Okay, so I think we can move on and do the same thing on the other eye. Get this put that here. I'm gonna go back in with my shader brush and my black chalk. Does anyone else like using black chalk for your line? Or I forgot what the brown one is called. I used to like using that on my eyebrows. I think you could do that now still if you wanted to do it with a super fine liner brush and get in there and do those like hair-like strokes, kind of like the way you use the Shake and Shade brow tint. That would be cute. And we're doing the same thing here, 7 to 24. I always feel like it's kind of good when I'm watching a video to see things twice, but I'm like, wait, I didn't see that, or I didn't catch the way you know, this was held or the way that was done. So yeah, it's really good one. Yeah. And you can already see the lifting effect that we talked about earlier is really taking place. Again, I'm making sure to get in my lash line, which we will definitely need to get later. Just really get that in there, right? And then I'll just go ahead with what we did before and use the edge of my brush to get a little moment here that says this is really soft. I'm going to blend in some more black chalk. One thing I love about the beauty community is like we are all always learning from each other. So hopefully today you'll leave with a tip or some inspiration, you know, something. Something you didn't come in with. That's my goal. Okay, so we see this is a little bit higher here. I'm just gonna use my brush to slowly urge this side into the same direction. Yes. Okay. And then I'm gonna soften that edge so it's not like a harsh stop. I always have a few of these brushes, the 224, because they're just good for so many things. I feel like no matter what I'm doing, I always need more than one thing. Okay. A little bit more. Another thing that could be really fun for this part is to go back to the film noir. Actually, first let's do our powder. You see, I get excited. I'm like, oh, let's do this. Let's put this on. All right, so let's focus. I'm gonna put on the carbon. I'm gonna tap it. Make sure we don't have unnecessary amount to fall out. And I'm gonna just work that in. Just pack the house. Okay. And the reason I'm avoiding the center, of course, is because we don't need to really pack on product where it's not really going to be showing. Back to what we talked about earlier about not packing on many layers of product where it's not necessary. Like if I know I'm going back in with something else and it's not going to show or help, let's just not even bother, you know? Okay, I'm going back in with the Illuminati Dazzle eyeshadow and I'm pressing that. I felt a little fallout. I felt it. Okay, this is good. So when you do have fallout, don't panic. Just very lightly, with like the very tips of the hairs of your brushes. Flick, 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 flick. Don't brush it off. Flick it off. Okay, and I'm gonna press that in. Loves it. All right, so now I'm going to, actually while we're here, let's also do the bottom. I'm gonna dip my 219 brush into the black track and I'm gonna go ahead and work that along the bottom lash line. Okay, and I'm going to take the carbon again and set that as well. Okay, so now let's set that with a little carbon. We want to make sure we don't have too much product on the studio to the gamble today with the skin before black product. But again, if your skin's well set and you make sure the brush is not overloaded, you'll be fine. I often see like people just like digging into an eyeshadow or blush or any powder product, and it's like, well, what is the point really to me? Because it just seems like a lot gets wasted that way. And it's expensive to keep the kit stocked. So I don't know about you, but I'm not trying to do all that. All right, I feel like this got a little happy right here, so I'm gonna grab my little picture and as I'm taking this off, I'm giving it a little spin. So I'm just twisting it at the same time, right? We can come back to this later as well. All right, now for the film noir part that I spoke about before. So, okay, you know how you do your transition shades and all that? You could take the film noir and just gently work it just above your black, right? It also gives your black shadow and all that a meeting place, a place to melt and relax and not be so extra, right? It just brings, it imparts tone, obviously, but then it also brings a bit of softness and a little like finesse. I feel like there are certain steps that when you do them, they take a makeup just left of center, you know? Obviously, this could have been a golden shade, a brown shade, but I feel like we know to do that. Like that's the most obvious way to go about it, right? So considering the year we're having, let's just do other stuff. Let's just be random. Right, and then I'm gonna also, I usually like to take, whatever I do on my crease, I usually like to take it into this little cave right here, and then I brush it up towards the front of the brow, right? And then just, let's take this, actually, let's take that part of it again. I'm just gonna pinch it and just soften that. It's getting a little severe. But you see the difference between this and this. It's like, this is fine, nothing wrong with it. But if we take the film noir and just kind of, I always think of it in terms of sentences. Like if I continue this and I take it to the front of my brow, it's almost like I had a more complete thought. And obviously this is a more dramatic makeup, so I've really gone for it here. But because it's not a deep brown or dark brown, it still has a softness about it. And I'm going to maybe pop a little, not too much. Nothing crazy, okay? So now I'm gonna grab the eyeliner so I have the whole eyeliner in P-line. Please report to the stage. Whole eyeliner in P-line. Okay, she's kind of shy right now. All right, she's fired. Let's move on. I'm gonna do the Diamond Crumbles Dazzle Shadow, and this is gonna be our glue, our glitter glue, our primer, our everything, and she's gonna impart tone. She's a triple threat, okay? I feel like there are a lot of trends with adding a lot of steps and a lot of different products, but if I can get something that's not only going to serve a purpose and work really hard for me, but also be gorgeous, she's hired. I want her on the job. So I'm gonna take this and I'm going to, do I want to go straight on or do I want to, no, let's not go straight on. Let's do a little bit on this brush. This is the 217. And I'm going to pack that onto the center and work it left and right. Right? And I'm working kind of a dome shape as opposed to just going all over the lid, right? And I mentioned that detail because I know you're all familiar with everything. But I mentioned that detail because I feel that oftentimes we can default to, okay, then you do this and you go over the whole lid and that's fine. And a lot of gigs, they call for that. But especially whenever you have a little creative freedom, I think it's really fun to just deviate, even if it's almost imperceptible. I think it makes a difference. It's more satisfying, gratifying. Okay, so next we're going to use the the purple hologram glitter. And I'm going to use the same brush because now she has a little product on. She's going to grab things. And the reason I'm going to do this before I do my shadow is because since it is a glitter, it's going to leave little spaces for me, right? I'm going to press that onto the lid. And you can see we've added so much dimension and interest with just those two products, right? You can see like that makes such a difference, right? But then there's more. We're gonna take Discotheque in the Dazzle shadow line as well. And I'm going to use the same brush because I'm all for that. I'm like, you're all going to the same house. So, and then I'm focusing that mainly on the center. I feel like these are the kinds of looks that I would see growing up, and I would be like, which glitter was it? But then it's like 3 different things. I'm gonna take a little bit more of the hologram, and I'm gonna just put that right on top, right? So let's go ahead while we're here and just do the same thing on the other eye. Let me close this glitter because you know things like fall over, and that's just not what we're here to do today. All right, I'm taking this again. This is the Diamond Crumbles Dazzle Shadow. I made myself some little label maker labels so that I could make sure I wasn't going crazy trying to remember the names, but I love these liquid eyeshadows. They're so gorgeous. And the other thing is too, they don't dry up like some other liquid eyeshadows. I find that some liquid shadows dry in a really unflattering way, like too much, and they can, you know, show like lines, and they can get a little less than ideal, not the look we're going for. All right, we're gonna make our dome again, and again, this is the 217 brush. I'm gonna use my monitor to make sure things are focused. I just have it off on the back of my hand. And then let's do more. Why not? Is anyone getting dressed up for Halloween, doing anything fun? Let me see what's going on in the chat. Okay, it's overwhelming. I'm overwhelmed. I'm gonna go with it. All right, so we have this on, and now I'm going to take the same purple hologram glitter, and we're going to apply that straight on the same brush. And I like to just take my time with this because, you know, glitter just, she likes to travel. She's a girl about town. So I'm just going to pop that right here. Off a little bit. I feel like I need a little bit more action there. Yeah, and then now I'm going to take the Discotheque Dazzle Shadow and pop that onto the center. And what I love about the way these three work together is they're just like a really good team. They each respect what the other one needs to do, but they don't step on toes, you know, no one's trying to steal anyone's part. I just love that so much. Right? Okay, so now I'm gonna take Feline, and I'm going to take you can take any brush, right? This is the 116, and I'm just going to use it as instead of using my hands, I just feel like it's a good habit to have right now. And I'm gonna go into the waterline. I'm also going to take it just underneath. Just bring a little more intensity here. Have you done eyeliner in your waterline on camera? It's very awkward. It's like, don't cry. I need to cry. And then I'm going to go in a little bit on the waterline on top, which I'm just very weird and I have huge eyes because I can do it just kind of looking around. But it's a subtle thing, but it brings such a nice intensity to the eye. Even if you weren't doing a crazy makeup and you wanted to just throw something light on, but you don't want to look overly made up, you could just take a little cold pencil. It could be a brown, and go into your waterline and do and just tight line as well. You know, you can get eyes that look more defined, more piercing, but at the same time, not look like you're wearing eyeliner. At least not obvious eyeliner, right? I'm gonna take that. I'm just going on the top as well. I know, I move. And then I'm going to take this pencil and just also maybe bring this down a little. I'm gonna take this brush. You can use like a 209 or 210 liner brush, but I'm just gonna use it to bring a little more drama into the situation. Just doing a little too much of this. This is a little too much. That's one thing that I love about just all the experience I've had working in theater is all these little things you learn about communicating character traits through the little tiny decisions like curving a liner or bringing it further down the nose, or is she a bird? Is she a witch? You know, and like the makeup informing the audience in subtle ways in collaboration with whether it's movement or costumes, etc., to really give you some insight into who that character is, right? So we've got this down. The feline liner is great, not only because it's just like a really beautiful black, but then look at how I can get something that looks pretty close to a point without even getting involved with my brush yet, right? And then I just go in, because we like to just take that extra step and bring it down a little bit more. And then also like that, bring it up a little bit so we get this little hook moment. Right? Okay, we're getting there. Okay, so once that's done, we already curled the lashes. I'm gonna take the In Extreme 3D mascara. I'm going to mascara the house. And I like to wiggle it at the base, go through. Right, and at this point, my lashes are a supporting cast for the 12th lash. I'm so sorry. Okay, this is my first time doing this, so things are happening. Okay, so this is the In Extreme Dimension mascara. And as I was saying, at this point, my lashes are just a supporting cast for the supermodel lash that I'm gonna wear in a second. It's 76. I'm just gonna pile that on, and also gonna get that onto the bottom. So thank you for hanging in there with me. Thank you for being patient. I'm gonna figure out what that little glitch is. I've been buying things and like getting very techy within the past couple of weeks, knowing that this is coming. So we're learning, we're growing, we're trying things. I'm gonna take this to get off my hands. And everyone's favorite thing to do on camera, a lash. I'm gonna grab my, I think I mentioned it already, but just in case you missed it, it's the Supermodel Lash 76. And I'm gonna take a little kilo. One big mistake I feel like people make is putting too much glue. Like the logic is if I put a lot of glue, then it'll stick. And I don't necessarily think it's true. I think as long as the band is well covered, you'll be fine. Usually I just kind of give it a little shake. Okay, I don't know why I decided to do a lash on camera, but here we go. All right, I'm going to lay this down. And then got my eye on my left one. And I used to subscribe to, I do it this way and I do it this way, but it depends on what's happening that day. That's how I do it. You know, like whichever area I can get to cooperate, whether it's the center or the front, I think, oh, wow, okay. That's fine. We're gonna come back to that. I always think when things like that happen, it's an opportunity because I think we learn more from seeing like how to fix things because we see plenty of well-edited videos, and I'm guilty of uploading them too, of things just going perfectly. So let's let that settle. The lash is on. I'm gonna grab my little Q-tip and I'm just gonna do a little Cinderella, and then we'll just touch that up. After I spin the Q-tip around, I'm kind of taking the other side of the Q-tip and just blending it over. So whatever product is next to it will just kind of glaze over and help us out, right? Lash is sitting, looks really good. We love her. She's hired, she's gonna be booked again. And I'm gonna get some glue onto this one. Make sure I have black track all of it. Are you like a super meticulous, put everything back as you're working makeup artist? If so, please tell me how you do that. Because once the gate is open and we go off to the races, I'm like, all I see is forward. I don't see anything else. And then at the end of the gig, at the end of the day, when it's like, that's a wrap, then I look around and I'm like, how can I clean up that? That's me, it's really me. All right, so I'm airing this out and we're gonna place her, him, it, right along the lash line. And using a very light touch is super helpful because sometimes we think if we manhandle it, we put it in its place, it's gonna cooperate. And lashes are very fickle because they're so delicate and light. You want to just be very light-handed. I kind of feel like being light-handed in general helps with doing makeup. It helps you avoid putting on too much product. It helps you blend better. It helps you in so many ways, right? So I'm pressing this into the lash line, right? We're gonna let her do her thing. I'm gonna take my powder and just gonna go over things. This is the NC42, right? Okay, now this is my favorite part. I did all of this just to do this one thing, okay? So before we do lips, we're gonna do brows. I was gonna keep the brows kind of like this, but I was like, it's not really future if the brows are just regular brows. Okay. So first I'm gonna just take a little makeup remover and get makeup a little bit on my hands. And now I'm taking the fascinating Eyeliner, yes, and I'm going to do my brows. Now, I've done this before with a white brow, but last time I used the Line in pure white. I find they both work. It depends on what you're going for how much time you have and how you're feeling. Sometimes you just feel like working with the cream. I don't know. I can explain it, right? Now I'm taking the white and I'm working on the side of the pencil. Now, whether or not you work on the tip or the side is going to give you a different thing. And that's with your brows, that's with your lips. If I want to shade something in, I'm going to use the side. If I want to define, I'm going to use the tip, right? And I use them alternating throughout the application, right? And I'm gonna go forward and back just to make sure things are well covered. You'll see my brows looking very crazy for a second. And then I'm gonna grab my, okay, this is a sentimental product. This is a, just like being from Brooklyn, going up around beauty supply stores and, you know, getting your little edge brush. This is that. So shout out to beauty supply stores and nostalgia. Yes. So now I'm going to, I'm gonna wipe that. And I'm going to, right? So now I'm gonna take my finger and just kind of, yeah. And then now we're just trying to get a more defined shape. Okay. I'm gonna grab a Q-tip and just always spinning. I never just take the Q-tip straight. I just feel like it makes a difference to just kind of spin the Q-tip around. Also, you're getting all sides of the Q-tip and you're not just like using the product on the Q-tip to wipe the thing you're trying to get rid of. I don't know. It depends on what you're doing. Sometimes a swipe is fine, but depending on what's on the skin, depending on what you're trying to go for, you might want to go back in there and just spin the Q-tip. I'm going to just define the end a little better. Yeah. I'm going to grab more Q-tip. I'm going to yeah, so now I'm going to sharpen my pencil because a dull pencil is not doing anything for anyone, right? So I'm going to sharpen it again. It's not cooperating. And before I go straight onto the area, I'm just going to buff it onto my hand just to make sure it's smooth. And then, excuse me, and then I want to smoothly. And then I'm going to, so now as I'm finishing the brow, I'm taking this and I'm just using the side of the brush and I'm going up. And it kind of has a little bit of a wax effect if you've ever worked with like a brow wax, because the texture of the pencil along with the pressure is now helping me push my brows up, right? I'm gonna get this little dark area right there. She's fired. This is not the case for her. I don't know why she showed up for rehearsal. Right, so now we're kind of coming out of our normal, like default glam, right? And it's not in a negative way. Like I love the glams that we tend to gravitate towards. They're beautiful, but when we want to just like play a little bit more, I love a white brow, or sometimes I'll take concealer and put it in my brows. The thing is though, I haven't bleached my brows since I was probably in high school. I used to go with my mom to the hair salon, and I remember she let me get my hair colored, and she let me tint my, well, they had to bleach them, so they lifted them just a little bit though. I haven't done it since then. I don't know why, I'm just like scared to do it now. I know it's perfectly fine, but I'm just like, I'll just use makeup. Just put some concealer or groundwork. Groundwork is such a good color for this, especially if you have a similar skin tone to me. It's I forgot what it's called, but it's in a little pink pot. It's very, very much so a classic product. And people love to use it as like an eye base for shadow. Or if you're like of a more fair skin tone, you might use it just alone. But groundwork in the brows with a spoolie really brushed in on a brown skin tone or medium skin tone or deep. So magical. It just adds like ethereal otherworldliness to your whole situation. Okay. So now I'm going to do the same thing using the side of the brush and treating this kind of like a brow wax. And I'm going to go in with my little trusty Spinderella Q-tip, excuse me, and I'm going to spin that around, right? I'm just going to get this a little bit more. Yes. Now, when I'm looking at this, I'm like, I kind of feel like we need to get into the inner corner with something. So let's take a little bit of the Diamond Crumbles Dazzle shadow and pop a little bit of that onto the inner corner. So lift it a little bit. I feel like future glam is like, it makes me think of McQueen. McQueen said that the clothes were designed for women that like scare people, like scare other women or scare other people. He said she's an intimidating figure, you know? I love that kind of essence in general, but with makeup and this kind of glam, that kind of informs like what direction I want to go to. And I say all that to say that it's a good thing to kind of consider when you're doing any makeup. It's like not just the colors and the tone of the product, but how we use them is going to speak directly to like, who is this girl? Who is she? Where is she going? What is she about? What is she like? You know, Who does she hang out with? Where does she hang out? And then I feel like it just helps you make better decisions. So now I'm taking Discotheque again, the Dazzle shadow, and I'm focusing that mainly at right at the tip, right? So we have this little bit of a dynamic situation going. So we have the diamond crumbles going here, and just a touch of this focus right in the beginning, right? And I love little touches like that because it's just a little element of magic, in my opinion. I'm going to do the same thing here. Right? And now let's do lips, and then we'll go back over the face, do our final reason. Let's see. Yeah, do our housekeeping. I was thinking of putting a little bit underneath here, but I don't think it's necessary. Okay, so my lips are moisturized. I'm taking the chestnut lip pencil. And this is going back to what we talked about before about using the side versus the tip, right? So I like to use, first of all, let's just talk about skin tone and neutral color lip pencils. I love to use them under any lipstick. Of course, I've, done, and also love to do like a Soar or a Dervish or a Whirl, or if you're trying to get that pinky nude, depending on the skin tone, I love that too. But in general, I love to match the lip pencil to the skin tone. I don't like to have a ton of lip pencils. I feel like it's not super necessary. So I'm gonna go ahead. And I'm using the side of it, and I'm not actually aiming for right at the lip. The shadow is cast right here, right? This shadow is what tells us where it stops, right? So instead of looking at where my lip ends, when you think of overlining, this is a good thing to think about. It's like, where is the shadow? So the lip ends here, and we know that because the shadow is cast here. So I'm taking the side of the pencil, and now I'm going to follow that shadow. I mean, overdrawing is my true essence, really trying to shine through. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Right? Okay, let me make sure I'm not missing anything important from the team. Okay, we're good. We're good. We're good. Okay, so I was like, are they even still seeing me? Okay, so I'm going in here, using the side again. And I'll never forget this. Like when I first went to a MAC store, it was such a huge deal for me. And I was in a mall. And I went up to, and I just was like, I need lips, right? And I remember this was the first pencil I was introduced to, and it was like a gold pigment eyeshadow and like a maybe touch or something similar, like a nude lipstick. And she took the pencil and then she just took the tip of it and just like went to town in my lip. I don't know if it's I just love it. I feel like first of all, if you look at skin or lips or anything like that, there's all kinds of stuff happening tone wise, right? That's why if you've seen those videos that use like a palette that has lots of primary colors, and then we put it all together and like make a base. It's like, yeah, all of that is going on in our skin tones, and we all have the same stuff, just different concentrations of each, right? And when I think about this tip, it makes me think of that because it's like my lip isn't just pink or just brown. It has a lot going on. So I just always love that tip, and I don't remember her name or what she looked like or anything. I just remember she just blew my mind when she did that. I was just like, so this is derriere, and I'm going to, I should be so ashamed. I'm Haitian, derriere. I think it's better if I like actually, my grandmother's smiling down on me for making an effort, even though it still sounds terrible. So now I'm taking this, and I'm just going to pop that on all over, right? And now for the moment, let's have a moment of silence for the classic that is MAC lip gloss. Okay, let's just take a moment of appreciation. She taught the girls that regular lip gloss was not enough. We need glass. People need to see their reflection in our lips. I love this product. It was the first time I spent more than $2 on a lip gloss. It was on this lip gloss. So it holds a special place in my heart. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to pop that on. Okay, let's just take a moment to appreciate what's happening here, right? And I'm going to work that all. I don't have to tell you how to put gloss on. You don't have to put gloss on. So now I'm going to take a kind of unexpected. This is the 263. It's an angled brush, and I'm just going to get rid of that little stuff there. I'm going to use it to just kind of, this texture is quite thick, and I'm going to use it to just press the glass into the edges and work in the rest of it. This is also a good brush for cleaning up the edges of like your lips. If you're doing a red or a black lip and you really want to get that super clean line, this is a good brush for that. Another good thing to use, like if you're on set, are those disposable wedges, because they have such a straight line. They get right up to the edge. I love doing that. Or I love using a powder puff. If you put your finger in the center and just like make it hug your finger and just use it right along the edge. That's also good for that. So I'm just gonna work this in. Right? Okay. First, let me just take a little tissue break, excuse me. And now I'm going to release the side of my hair. And I like to take, at the very end of my makeup, I like to take, well, not the very end, we have like a couple more steps. But I like to take the skin finish again and just kind of melt everything together. And I think the knee-jerk reaction to something like this might be that it's gonna mess up everything else. But because we thought about our final look at each stage, we thought about contouring from the beginning. Then we went in with the film noir and the blush. So we've been adding dimension on top of dimension this whole way. So when you go in with something like this and you just want to buff out any like imperfections, it's just, you see that it brings a little bit more of that thing that skin finish is famous for, which is that it gives some dimension. Now, because I have the 90s influence in here, I'm not going to like spray my face down and do all of that, but I am. But what I will do is grab my, let's see, 24, where is it, 24? Okay, let's grab the 129 and Cheeky Bronze. If you have not tried Cheeky Bronze, you are seriously missing out. It is so stunning and it works on different skin tones in different ways. I'm gonna show you now. Right, I'm gonna keep this. And I'm kind of focusing more on, I'm not using this side of the brush, right? I'm using this little baby side right here. And I'm going to just step into the light, is what she's saying. So, do you see what's happening here? It's subtle, but I'm taking that. I'm going to take the other side. Like this makeup looks like I should have a mechanical arm. You know what I mean? And it would make sense. And you wouldn't even, it would be like, power to that. It's like, it looks like I should be in a sci-fi movie with one of those arms, running everything, owning everything. Now I'm gonna grab my pencil brush. This is the 219. And I'm gonna go ahead and take that. And what I like to do for the center is like, I like to work upwards, because anything that draws the eye up is flattering. Whether that's pulling your hair up, blending your eyeshadow up. You see, like if you want to go for an elongated illusion, instead of going up and down your nose, which elongates your nose, you can start from the center of the eye and blend upwards, right? And it just has this beautiful, flattering effect. And I'm going to use that same 129 just to blend it out with a line. So we use the pencil brush because it gives us that precision. So we're not just like smattering a highlighter all over the middle of our nose. but then at the same time, we don't want it to be a line, right? So go ahead and find that out. And then maybe instead of like, you know, I'm not gonna throw any shade. I'm just gonna say what I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna pop a little bit there. Because if you look at your nose, the light hits the sides. It doesn't, yes, it hits the center, but I feel like when your nose is shiny in the center, it just makes me think, anyway, it's pretty sometimes. We're not doing that today. I just have to be careful not to, just because I'm not doing something doesn't mean it's not right. It's just not what I want to do today. You know what I mean? I want to get away from that behavior in general. So, one thing we didn't do is we didn't put instrument dimension in the lashes. Now we know that they're sitting and they're safe and they're at home. Nothing can hurt them. Now we can go in. I like to just kind of, instead of rushing through and disturbing their piece, I'm just mainly focusing on the root, but then when I get here, I just kind of press it in. And then feather around the top if anything wants to glob up, so then I can break it up, right? So now, we're doing the same thing on this side. And just enough so that we can see the lash come through, but we don't want to make it a feature. There's already so much going on the eye. It's just like if I turn in a certain way, you can see there's some kind of feathery magic happening, but you can't tell exactly, excuse me, what, right? So I feel like we're kind of there. I feel like we've arrived. Usually after I do my eyes, I want to do my brow. That's the other thing too. It's like after you see everything, whatever isn't really rising to the occasion of the rest of the face is going to stick out kind of like a sore thumb. Then you can go back in there and just kind of bring her up to speed. So I went back in with Burnt Pepper, which is the blush. And now we're doing Film Noir again. And again, I'm going to, and I mean, I'm gonna assume that you already know this, but in case there's that one person that just started, because I feel like I was always that person in everything I went to. With the contour, I feel like there's a lot of, you know, we see it all the time. Like people are like, just put it here, but here is different depending on the face, right? And it has a lot to do with just like getting familiar with the anatomy of your face. It's like I put it here because my bone is there. That's the underside of my bone. That's where a shadow would naturally be cast. If you want to scare yourself and find all the contouring spots because you're still trying to figure that out, what you can do is go into your bathroom at night or your room. It doesn't have to be your bathroom. It just might be dramatic. And turn off the lights, right? And then like use your flashlight on your phone. And then light yourself from below. Light yourself from the side, from the top, and just look at where the contours are. Look at where the shadows are, I mean. And that will inform you where the shadows you don't want are and where the ones you do want are. All right, I kind of feel like we're here. I kind of feel like this time went by so fast. I was extremely nervous today. I hope you can't tell. But I had a lot of fun hanging out with you today. Thank you so much again for being here. I'm so happy that I got to do this with MacPro live, like the first major makeup company, establishment, store experience I ever had. And working with a ballet company in New York and having worked with MAC products for so long, it just feels really amazing to be doing this with you right now. So thank you again for being here. I believe if you are curious about any of the products, obviously, Louise put them in the chat. There are links there. And yeah, I hope that we can do this again. Thank you so much. And again, I'm Ehlie Luna on Instagram, and have an amazing day. I hope you enjoy today's Future Glam. Do it for Halloween. Bye.